class, this is another installment for Chapter 8 on water treatment. We'll be getting into 8.2, which is characteristics of untreated water, so what we're trying to remove from the water to make it drinkable. For this video, I'd really like to be able to list the major contaminants and characteristics of untreated water and understand turbidity and how it is measured. So from the last video, we saw the major sort of characteristics of untreated water, inorganics, major inorganics, minor inorganics, sort of naturally occurring compounds, anthropogenic, and living organisms. And so there's a lot of stuff that we have to deal with in water that can be, toxic to human health or just, cause sort of palatable aesthetic concerns. An important thing to consider is seasonality with your water source. So if the rainy season, there might be a lot of runoff, as we've seen in previous chapters with suspended solids. That could increase, the particles in your water. Also with droughts and groundwater getting at lower levels, the quality might suffer as well. So there's, a seasonal distribution to most water sources, and that will vary depending where you are. So here are some major physical characteristics of water in Table 8.3, as some of these are more the aesthetic variety for palatable water. We have color, taste, and odor. Temperature is also important. I don't think any of us really like drinking warm water, and that can have different implications for what is in your water. So we'll concentrate more on turbidity. So this is, turbidity measures the optical clarity of water, so, the particles in the water, the dirt, or other suspended particles. And so here's kind of a picture. You might have seen different water sources that, have varying levels of turbidity, might be really murky, hard to see, and really we're trying to get to that clear water. So how is this actually measured? It's with a disc, and you kind of drop it down and measure the distance to where you can't see it anymore. So I'll integrate a small video on how to do this in the open water. There's also another video you could watch about measuring it in the water and with a tube, or you can also measure it in the lab. You can measure it with turbidity probes and whatnot.
So this is our test for Secchi depth, and we use an instrument called a Secchi disc. So again, for this test, we make sure that we're not wearing our sunglasses, and we're going to be doing the test on the shady side of the boat, just because we don't want the sunlight obstructing our view. So as you can see, the disc has 2 white and 2 black portions that are easy to see in the water. So the most important thing about this test is that as you're lowering it down, this is especially for conditions with moving water, you want to make sure that the disc goes straight down as much as you possibly can get it. So to perform the test, you lower the disc down into the water until the point that you can't see it anymore. And once it's reached the point where you can't see the disc in the water anymore, you pinch the rope right at the surface of the water. And once you have that pinch, pull it up a little bit to the point where you can just barely see the disc, and you pinch the rope a second time at the surface of the water. Then when you pull the disc all the way up, you have 2 readings, and the average of the 2 readings, so right in the middle, will be your total Secchi depth. Now the rope has increments marked already on it of meter and half meter. So the black is half meter, red is a meter, and you can use these to take your depth. So here I have a meter. I have just under 1.5 meters for my Secchi depth at this black mark here.
So the major dissolved constituents in water, I was talking chloride, fluoride, iron and manganese, nitrates. There's lots of different things. So chloride and fluoride, we usually add to water for disinfection processes, and fluoride for dental properties, but there can be too much of a good thing, and it can be toxic Sometimes, especially fluoride, it can cause buildup in the bones. It's a real issue parts of Africa, and also can hurt your teeth if it's at too high concentrations. And we know with nitrates, looking that up about blue baby syndrome and limiting oxygen. From chapter 5 in biology, we learned about different viruses, bacteria, pathogens that can be in the water. They have a lot of different health effects, mostly diarrhea, but vomiting can be blood, it can be fever, severe headache. So we want to avoid all these things. So you don't have to memorize each and every one of these, but it's important to know there's a lot of different types of pathogens, bacteria, viruses, helminths that we need to remove from the water and use different processes for it. There's cryptosporidium, rotavirus, schistosomiasis, which is in snails. And then we have our synthetic organic compounds that we can, from chemicals, and we saw a lot of these in the environmental risk chapter, atrazine, benzene, or BPA, benzopyrene, PCBs, TCE, all sorts of different chemicals. We have inorganics and arsenic, mercury. Again, not having to memorize all these, but kind of knowing what category they're under and to be aware. So depending on your treatment process, which we'll learn in the next section, these processes are matched with what to remove from the water. And also these kind of compounds like natural organic matter, if not removed or through sedimentation or in the beginning, can really impact our treatment processes. It can cause us to have to use more chemicals or disinfectants. It can also cause disinfection byproducts, which can be carcinogenic when combined. So it's important to try to remove these before putting them through a filter or a disinfection system. They can cause clogging in the membranes, kind of slime and growth in the distribution system. So here's kind of the different unit processes that were talked about in those tables and that we'll get to in the synchronous lecture, and more about the process. On the top is like a traditional process in A, and B is more reverse osmosis, membrane technologies, desalination. And so we'll largely focus on the traditional process. We have a group that's studying desalination for their group project, so they'll get into that more. But yeah, thank you. Hopefully you achieve these learning objectives, and I'll see you on Zoom.